Hello friends, I am here putting the last finishing touches on these mantles with the most beautiful, elegant and dramatic pumpkins you have ever seen. And they're so easy to make. And this is what this video is all about, how to make these stunning pumpkins that can decorate not only your mantelpiece, but also your Thanksgiving table. So let me show you how to make these amazing, beautiful pumpkins that everyone is gonna be asking you, where did you get them? Hello friends, I'm quickly interrupting this video because I just finished editing the video and it does run long. I was about to go back and start cutting scenes out, but then I realized you're losing a lot of information. So instead, right now you should be seeing a timestamp of each important component that you might want to fast forward to. And if you think about it, this project has two big parts, the stems and the body of the pumpkin. Now, I already have a video with 4 different methods of making the stem, but I was working on this one and I really can save you time and money because I combined several of the methods and I like them even more. And this way you get to decide if you want to fast forward, if you want to slow down and listen to my advice, because let me tell you, I'm giving you a lot of tips of things that you already probably have in your house, and that saves you money instead of rushing out, going buying more supplies and wasting time and money. I made the mistakes for you. I took the extra time. That way you don't have to do that. Let's get started with the stems. Let's begin with the stem. That will give you the chance that whatever method you're using, even if you're spray painting, you can let that dry, then you can go back and start working with the actual body of the pumpkin. Now, I am working outside because I was going to use the paper mache method, but I thought, why do I need to use the paper mache paste? All you actually need, if you're gonna follow this method, is masking tape, painter's tape, and because I'm going to cover these stems with a hot glue stick from the hot glue gun, I don't need to cover it with the paste from the paper mache. I already made a video that shows you step by step 4 different ways of making the stem, because that's the hardest part. Yes, you can get a stem from a pumpkin, but the problem that you will encounter is this. You have to find the right size of stem. Sometimes, you just can go to the store and break it from a pumpkin that you don't need. And the other thing is, when you store your pumpkin, this stem will get brittle and brittle as the time passes. So you don't want to spend all this work and then you bring your pumpkin out and your stem is just broken in pieces. But before we go into the stem, let's talk about what supplies do you need. Now, the original method in my previous video, I use pipe cleaners, but these ones are not too strong or sturdy. So I went to Lowe's and I got me, this is, what is it called? Suspended ceiling hanging wire. What I like about this is the price. I think it was $7-8. And also it is very sturdy, it is strong, but you can still bend it easily and it's easy to cut. You will need as well some kind of wire that is not as thick. I'm using this green one, which is floral wire for the tendrils. Now, you will need plenty of glue sticks for your glue gun. I like to buy the longer ones. And also you will need paper, not a lot. I like it that it's a simplified version of a paper mache, and spray paint. I am using gold because that's what I have. And you also need masking tape. Now, to be honest, if I had to go today and buy masking tape, I will get the green color, because if you have an area where the spray paint didn't going well, then you will see the blue. But if you see green, it's better. Now, first of all, let's cut the wire to the length that you want to have your stems. I am making 3 big pumpkins, so these are gonna be the bigger stems, and these are 12 inches long. I am making 4 medium ones, 10 inches long, and then I am making the rest of them 8 inches long. So they decrease in length as the pumpkins decrease in size. And the last one. Also, if you like to work in an assembly type of way, the sun is hitting my face, I apologize. This is the time when you can cut your green wire for the tendrils. The tendrils are those hair-like strands at the end, and this is where you can give it all the drama that you want, longer tendrils or shorter ones, or 2 or 3, how many you want. I have printed a couple of pictures in here that are my guide to see the shapes of the stems. And what I'm going to do is prepare my masking tape. I need a few short strips, and I also need a couple long strips. Use one of your longer pieces of tape, attach it to the end of the paper. It doesn't have to be perfect. Grab one of your wire stems and secure it to the tape and start rolling. But once you get the rolling started, if you work at an angle, you get a thinner tip and a wider base. And as you work towards the bottom, rolling the paper, it gets wider naturally and stays thinner at the tip. And then with the leftover, just fold it and tape it. For a tighter stem, twist the paper to the right or counterclockwise, and the tape to the left or clockwise. And keep adding tape to secure it. And that is why it's nice to have strips of tape already cut. If the stem is too thin, keep adding paper and tape until you get the look you desire. Make sure there is no tape coming off or sticking out. Otherwise, the hot glue will show that as a bump. And trust me, don't leave this step for later on when you're using the hot glue gun. You may get hot glue on your finger, and that is not fun. And if you need to, use more tape to tame all those wild ends. Now let's attach the tendrils. I like to fold the long wire in half, then I make a loop and twist. Don't worry if it looks like it is going to come off. Once you apply the hot glue, it will stay secure in place. I think I will add one more, just a single one, and secure it with some tape, but not too much because we want to keep this end thin. To get the curly effect on the tendrils, use a pen or pencil and wrap it around it. You want to do this before you spray paint the stem. The next step is to bend the stem to the desired shape. Check one more time for lifting tape, especially around the areas where you bended the stem. Flatten the bottom of the stems with a spoon or a pen, even a screwdriver. That way the stems lay better on the pumpkin itself. While I was working making these stems, I realized that when I make mushrooms, I use foil paper to make the bottom of the mushrooms. And I say, let me try it and see if this will work. It bends. So let me show you how I did this. I cut a sheet of foil paper and I'm starting at the tip. And then I am going to attach my tendrils already in here. And what you keep doing is you just keep rolling. Now, actually, you don't need to use hot glue for this process, but if you press it in the future, it does get indented. So I'm going to do this, which goes faster. Keep rolling. Instead of keep swimming, keep rolling. And this is so fast. Did you see how fast this is? Even quicker than the masking tape. Now I am going to add a little bit of tape on the tip. I want to secure the wire until I use the glue gun, and I want this very thin. And look, you can still mold it the way you want it. If you look at my inspiration pumpkins, some of them have this thicker area by the tip, like if the pumpkin was just snapped off from the vine. To make this, I got the thinner wire and I used tape to create a wider area in the center. For this one, I use a little bit of paper as well, but I don't want this too thick, and the glue will add thickness. So play around and see which look you like best. Okay, now it's time to cover the stems with glue using the hot glue gun. I like to start at the tip just to get the tendrils secure. And then I will come back and add more glue at the end. You can bend the wire around if you need to. I apologize if my hands are shaking a little bit too much. I am doing this at an awkward angle, that way you can see what I'm doing, but I also need to see what I am doing. Let's cover the bottom. There are a couple of techniques with the glue gun. You can do straight lines, one next to each other, trying to make some longer and some shorter. That way they don't stop in the same area. And the other technique is just going back and forth. I do a little bit of both and play with it and see which style you like best. The curved areas are a little bit hard to do. Also, go back and make sure you don't have big drops of glue and smooth them out. And now we are ready for the last step, spray painting the stems. I like to spray paint in groups of 4 or 5. That way I can save a little bit of paint. And don't do this the day before Thanksgiving, please, especially if you're bringing the stems indoors. Always let your spray paint craft aerate at least 3 to 5 days if possible, especially if around food. You want to smell the mashed potatoes, not the spray paint. And as you can see, the foil paper are easier to cover using less paint, so keep that in mind. And now we let them dry. Now that the stems are drying, let's talk about the body of the pumpkin itself. Now, you need a fabric material that you want to use. I am going to use velvet. Now, I just love the different shines as the light is hitting the velvet, so I am going to play with that. Actually, this is not real velvet. I think it's called velour or something like that, because real velvet is stiff. So what I did is I got a yard and I had to go to Amazon. Sadly, Hobby Lobby and Michael's didn't have a blue color. The blue they have is like that kind of crush, and I don't like it that much for this type of project. And I wanted to do this kind of dusty blue. I'll have the link in the description box of the fabric that I got, and it was $15, $14.99, and I got 1 yard. But the thing with getting fabric by the yard is that you're limited to the colors that the company offers. What I found is I went to my local thrift store and I found a shirt. It's a little bit darker than that one, and I love that because then you have different hues of the blue you want to use. And it's $5, $4.99 at the Goodwill. And I can make a few pumpkins with this color. I even found this beautiful kind of like gold color and this brown. And I wanted to get more of this beige gold color, but I did not find anything at the Goodwill. Now this is a pillowcase, and I love to use this around Christmas. I do not want to sacrifice this pillowcase. This blue with this gold is just so beautiful. The good thing too is this one, you can use the sleeves and make the pumpkins out of the sleeve. Now it will be a little bit more work because you will have to cut it, and you sew at the bottom and you sew at the top instead of the method that I'm going to show you, which requires just to sew close the pumpkin at the top. But even if you want bigger pumpkins, I'm not gonna make a pumpkin this color, but this, pair of pants, I'm saving it for one day. And you can make bigger pumpkins out of pants because, of course, the circumference is much bigger. So check what you have at home that you don't want to wear anymore before you go running to the stores. Okay, I am using a black marker, but if you have a lighter color, you may want to use chalk. If you don't have a compass, you can try to draw this by yourself. You can use a pot, you can use a trash can lid. Now keep in mind that your circle is always bigger than what the pumpkin is going to look, because once you sew and gather all the fabric, your pumpkin is gonna shrink dramatically. If you have a very good pair of scissors, you could have actually cut both sides of the shirt. We have one. Now let me cut the other one. My daughter used to love wearing this jacket. Now she outgrew it, and this is a great way of having that item from your loved ones to have another purpose instead of keeping them in a box, and you can keep that memory going with a new purpose. Let me show you the different diameters of the circles that I cut and the size of the pumpkin you get at the end. Let's make these pumpkins. Now let's talk about what we need. First of all, you will need polyfill, in my case, the leftover from a pillow. And then you need also something to weigh down the pumpkin. Some people use rice, but I am storing this in the attic. And even though I am using plastic containers, I don't want to attract pesky pests. I was going to go to the store and get some poly pellets, but they are expensive. The other thing that you can use are these aquarium rocks. And this is a great idea because it is inexpensive. Now make sure you get one that has no dust. There are some gravel that, especially if you go to a driveway, they can be dusty and you don't want to have to deal with that, especially if you're going to put this on a table where you're going to have food nearby. And then you will need to sew. Yes, you can use regular string, but I am using fishing line. And the reason for that is because when you're pulling, especially the bigger pumpkins, when you're pulling the thread, you don't want it to break. And then you will need a good size needle. Now, you can do your project with this type of needle. I think this is 1.5. However, I will recommend, especially if you're doing several of them, I will recommend you go and buy yourself one of these ones. I got this a long time ago. I think I got it at Hobby Lobby. And this is a almost 5-inch needle. And this is very helpful, especially for these ones, because we wanna sew a little bit at the bottom. That way it lays a little bit flat. I'm going to show you how to work on a middle-sized one, but this is what you're going to do for all the pumpkins. The first thing we're going to do is to thread our needle, and this is why it's so helpful to have a needle with a big eye. And how much string do you need? Well, depends. Do you want a flatter pumpkin? If you want a flat pumpkin, you will need to add extra thread to sew that at the bottom. And then if you like more like a round one like this one, or like my sample one, do you see how this is more plump, more round? I like the flatter look. So for this type, you don't need that much. I will go, let's say if you have a 10-inch pumpkin, I will go 16 inches because when you pull, that's gonna be extra string thread. But for the dimple, to make the dimple, if you wanna make a dimple, you need a lot of extra thread. So this is, I kind of estimate, this is a 10-inch one. I like to go double. So if it's 10, I go 20, 22. If it's 15, I go 30. So let's do 22 inches long. And I like to use double. I like to double. For the little ones, you can use a single part of the thread. But for this one, I like to double it because when you're pulling that fabric, you don't want to you don't want to sew and then it just breaks at the end. That's no fun. So make sure you find your end, tie a knot, and you don't need to know how to sew. I mean, I'm not good at it. I just try my best. Now, do start from the inside because that knot that you made at the end, that's gonna stay in there, okay? Oops, it kind of almost came out. So, what you're going to do is an in and out gathering of the fabric. And try to keep it as close to the edge. Not try to be close to the edge. If you go too close to the edge, it might rip apart when you're pulling. If you go too in, you're gonna waste a lot of fabric. So just maybe just a little bit, half a centimeter. And once you think you have gathered enough, pull. Make sure you pull both strands again. This is very slippery. It's strong but slippery because it's a plastic. And then you're gonna do this all around. And don't try your stitches to be even. Don't go from, let's say, from here all the way to there. Do you see how much space in there? We don't want that. We want kind of even stitches all around. I like to go over the first one a little bit in, and now I'm gonna stretch it out. We have to put some filling. Okay. First thing I'm going to use is gravel. This is 1/3 of a cup. For this type of pumpkin, that's all you need. You don't need that much, just so he has some weight. And once you have that at the bottom, I am going to get the polyfill. And how much polyfill? Well, I like mine pretty plump, so I use a lot. I think this is a little bit too much, the whole thing. Let's see. I like to push it to the sides. I think this is good enough. Let's see. When you pull the thread, you'll have a better idea if you need a little bit more or not. Let's see. This one looks like it needs a little bit more in this side. It's a little bit too skinny in there. Okay. And now we are going to close the opening. Hold on. I don't want polyfill on top of the string. I want that to be as neat as possible. When you pull, just be careful. It is a strong line, but you don't want to rip it at this point. Okay. I'm happy with this one. So now we have to close this. In order to close this, I am going to gather the fabric as much as I want. Now, all of this line has fabric. I can't gather any more. What I'm going to do is go under, and I know this is going to come apart a little bit. This is where you need your muscle, and you keep pulling with the left if you're right-handed, and make sure both strings. And we're going to start to close. Always go under so you don't see it. You see how if I let it go, it opens? We are going to go to the other side. Now, don't come out all the way there. Try to come as close as the edge as you can. Keep pulling. I like to go from one side to the other. I am going to do a mini stitch to help me with the tension. So I go to the other side, and My leaves want to come with me. I am going to make a loop. Do you see that? There is a loop in between my fingers. I am going to pull that needle under, and before I close it, I am going to pull the other string, trying to close as much as possible, gathering that. And now this is helping me not to have to keep pulling. You still don't let it go, but it's much easier now that it is under one of those loops. We want to gather all the edges coming closer together. Do you see that? That way, when you place your stem, you don't see any of the seams. I'm gonna go under another loop. So this is my third loop with this kind of string. You have to. Now I'm going to go to the other side. Now, if you have a thimble, that's what it is called. And I'm also trying to make sure all that gravel is in the center. There we go. I am going to get the string, the needle, try to find the center. Now be careful if you don't have a thimble. From the center, I am going, that's why you need a longer needle. If you have a longer needle, this is so much easier. Trying to come out in the center as much as possible. I'm gonna do like maybe 1/2 centimeter to 1 centimeter of a stitch. We don't want it too close to where your needle came out because the velvet is not that thick and it can rip. So half a centimeter, go back to the center. Oh, hold on, let me pull that better. Do you see that? That string was there. So go back to the middle and pull. I'm going to go one more time. Some people put a button. That way in the future, this doesn't rip. I am coming out at a cross now. So the stitch was from here to here. I'm gonna go from here to there. Again, trying to make sure that this velvet doesn't rip in the future. Coming out in here. Let me try to make sure it's as close to the center as possible. The more you pull, the flatter your pumpkin is gonna be. Now we have to secure this. You don't want the string to come out. So we are going to go around, more loops, and put your needle under. And this is how I like to finish. You can cut it, of course. If you cut it, I will even cut it in here and make a knot. But what I like to finish this one, because I have enough, is go out, in, and go out, pull. Get your scissors. Now be careful, don't cut the velvet in here. But what I like to do is, so you don't see the little tail, because this is a hard string, pull as much as you can, and when you cut, that string is gonna end up somewhere in the body of the pumpkin. And here we go. We are going to keep doing that with all of them. For this one, there is so much fabric that I had to pull that I decided to do a 4-eye button. That's what you call it? Eyes of the button? That's how we call it in Spanish. Or the little holes. Because there is so much fabric. I think this is my biggest one. And it will have my most grandest stem. With the little ones, I ended up making 20. Of course, I think these 3 pumpkins are a little bit too big for the mantle. I have another idea what to do with them. And now it is time to match and find a stem for the pumpkins. Let's give them some personality. And once you find a partner, you put a generous amount of hot glue. Now, don't go crazy on it because we don't want it spilling out. But at the same time, we don't want this to fall the first time you pick up the pumpkin. And for this one, usually hot glue is just hot glue. And this one, you will have to stay with the pumpkin, pressing for a while until it gets dry. So that should take a couple of minutes. And look how beautiful the end result. Look at the difference of this store-bought one. Look at, it's a beautiful pumpkin, but look at the stem compared to this gnarly homemade stem. And if you like this video, remember to subscribe, to hit the like button, and until we see each other next time, let's make something wonderful together.